This is how we start. This is the very first layer. Now let's go to the next step. And I'm going to experiment a little bit because it's not like I always know exactly what kind of colors I'm going to have. I wanted to have something underneath my hand because I don't want to smudge those colors. And generally, I already see what's darker. And so I think I'm not going to worry so much. These shapes, this shape especially, is pretty easy. The fabric is harder. So here, again, I'm switching from one grip to another. I'm just following those reflections or everything in between reflections that is a little bit darker. So that's slightly different color that I'm using right now than before. It's a little bit darker. Okay, it's that color, it's darker. And now I'm just also pressing a little bit harder. So I'm kind of defining also the shape of light reflection with the color red around. So that orange from the thread, the spool of thread, it's orangey. It will reflect. I mean, you will have to show that reflection because it does already reflect onto it. It casts that color in a way, that reflection onto the nearby areas. And this is highly reflective surface, plastic surface of that sphere. And so I already see and may want to remember about this. And I will actually already introduce this orange there. I also have a little bit that orangey surface here, and then I have also reflected yellow. So we're looking at that interaction of colors between different colored shapes, because still that yellow continues being reflected. So it bounces off, color bounces off of the surface onto this surface. And so you see that dance of colors very, very often happening in such colorful still life. So look for it. So we have already a lot of colors mixed in the sphere. So you would think, oh, it's just red, nothing else. And then you start saying, wow, there's so many more colors I didn't think of. There are some reflections here. I might want to have some of them. So you sometimes, if there are way too many reflections, you will have to choose. You will have to probably select. So not always all of that makes sense to be transferred onto your drawing or suggested. I have millions of reflections right now. I'm going to make this a little bit of that yellow all over here. And then I have a little bit of green fabric being reflected on this side. So I'm going to introduce a little bit of green here. Something to blend a little bit more those reflections that I left here. So white can serve nicely blending and also glazing, just to get to those reflections that you're seeing. It's a really good tool at this point. Okay, so let's move to the next object, because without context we really don't understand why we have some of those colors. The cast shadow starts, so the intersection with this shape is roughly here. So I'm marking this for myself. And then, okay, let's work with something a little bit darker then. Right, so what I'm thinking I would do is there might be a combination of browns. That's how I would identify that cast shadow. I would be careful with complementary colors for the areas of dark within yellow, because it can turn very ugly. So first I would just maybe work with something darker in value, but still relatively not that much away on the color wheel in yellow. Yes, so I have this brownish, and I'm just, by the way, marking for myself that cast shadow. It's sending some more here. And here, over this area, I can go with white to blend a little bit and decrease maybe a little bit of that yellowness. Okay, and here, in this moment, I would introduce a darker in value pencil, and also in terms of color, that brown is not enough. I would introduce a little bit of greenish, just make it a little bit of a green-like, or even blue I can introduce in order to get to that. Let's see what works. We have some reflections from the green fabric anyway, and I can introduce a little bit of that blue here. At this point, that arrangement of colors for each shape gives you an idea that, well, it's really finding more and more variety of colors that interact. That's what is making your drawing successful, if you're really investigating each shape closely and experimenting a little bit. I was experimenting as I was going. Right now, my still life is just full of sunlight, so I had to stop because we get way too much contrast.